Hello everyone and welcome to this video. Now today I'm going to be doing an album review. I'm going to be taking a look at this album. It is by a band called the Lilac Time. It's a self-titled debut album. So I'll just be doing the usual thing in this video, giving a bit of background information about the album, then showing you my vinyl copy of it here, and then looking at each of the album songs in detail. So yeah, despite this being the band's first album, the history does go quite far back. So the band is led by a guy called Stephen Duffy. Now he, way back in the late 70s, was a founding member of Duran Duran, believe it or not. He was their original lead singer and songwriter, but he left the band in 1979. I think he maybe just thought, oh, I'll jump ship, wow, I can, these guys are not getting anywhere, and that was a year prior to them signing with EMI, so he lost out there quite big. However, following that, by the mid 80s, he was kind of making records of his own, under a pseudonym of Tintin, which was a very kind of cheesy kind of 80s dance orientated kind of sound, and he actually had some moderate success as Tintin, and a couple of quite high chart placing singles. Probably Kiss Me being the most famous one, reached number 4 in 1985. However, further releases, including a second album and another record which was a more experimental album, that were both some disappointments. And then he was subsequently dropped from his record label when he presented the concept and the idea for this album, a kind of folk rock orientated album, recorded with his brother and multi-instrumentalist Nick Duffy. So yeah, despite being dropped by his label, they weren't deterred. They were joined by Stephen Duffy's girlfriend's friend, Michael Weston, on keyboards, and they hired producer Bob Lamb and some studio time to record the album using royalties from Duffy's previous hit Kiss Me. So following the completion of the album, Duffy approached some small record labels. Swordfish Records, based in Birmingham, took up his offer to release the album in November of 1987 and pressed around 2,000 copies of it. Now at the time, the album was not a commercial success, and its singles failed to chart. However, what it did get was quite a positive critical reception, and then the album was picked up by Fontana, who saw potential in the band and decided to sign them. However, one of the conditions with signing them was that they would get to reissue the album, and also while they were at it, they remixed some of the songs. I don't think they made any changes which were too radical. From what I've kind of read, I think it was more just kind of a couple of backing vocals here and there, and then maybe some updated bass parts just to give it a bit more beef. This time, the album was subsequently reissued in the April of 1988, and its singles fared a little bit better on the charts. However, the album unfortunately still failed to chart. This critical reception extended into music publications off the time. Melody Maker called it quite delightful, while a retrospective review has called it a mini masterpiece and the start of a perfect career. Perhaps they're maybe not noting some of Duffy's kind of previous releases, which were certainly not masterpieces, it has to be said. So I will just show you my copy of the vinyl here. So this is a copy which I actually found in a charity shop. It was an Oxfam in Glasgow, and it was a bit of a blind buy. I think I'd heard of the name The Lion at the time and thought, and then kind of remembered, oh, I think I need to check that out, and then I seen it, and I just instinctively, decided decided like to buy it, but this is the Fontana reissue of it, so this has got like the remixed like tracks, but again I think I have listened to the original mixes and there's really not all that much difference like between them, like has to be said. I love the cover as well. This is actually a cottage called Searley's Cottage, which is where some of like the material for the album like was like recorded, so that's really nice and I think really fits like the album. Like I was watching a video just there of James Griffiths like Headley like sort of like looking at like some of like their favourite album covers and what makes a great album cover, and this is what I think does, and like this is what I think definitely fits into that category. Like it evokes some music like on it, like for me, like quite well there. So I'll just show the inner sleeve. It's just got like the lyrics to it there, so there's no pictures of the bands like or anything on here, no kind of clue to what like they look like, so it's all quite mysterious like this album here. And then there is like the record label. So yes, I will now go over each of the album's tracks. Okay, so we kick off the album with a song called Black Velvet, which is a really lovely like acoustic number to kick off the album. It's very quiet, very kind of melancholic like opener like to like the album. A very delicate song, this one here. Got some great lyrics on it, like found me a language that talks without blackmail. I called for you without words and you answered like a kiss on Black Velvet. It's just delivered really beautifully in a very soft kind of vocal performance, almost like a kind of like a whisper, and it's a really good kind of scene setter like for like the album. So yeah, Black Velvet would get a 9 out of 10. Okay, and then next track up is Return to Yesterday, which is possibly the most popular song like on the album. Certainly it was like the main kind of lead off single, and I can certainly see why. It's a very catchy song, this one here, like really good like instrumentation, and yeah, I just really love the track. I think it's a good lyric as well. It's a kind of mix of like a lot of things. It's kind of, I suppose you've got a kind of loss of innocence about it, and a kind of return to yesterday, and it's kind of evoking like images like of like England's past, while also kind of wondering like about like the future. Like he says, like we'll face this new England like we always have, in a fury of denial we'll go out dancing on the tiles. It's just a lovely toe tapping number, rolling banjos, and like again a really great vocal performance like from Duffy. Unfortunately, like, as a single, like as like a reissued single, I think this was probably reissued about 3 or 4 times at least, but yeah, like I only managed to reach number 82 like on like the charts, which is a real crime, because I think it could have been like a quite a well, not a big hit song, but like at very least like kind of like a top 30 hit, like I would have thought. But yeah, like Return to Yesterday, a great track, and yeah, 10 out of 10 from me. I'm with you in Rockland. Next one now, we have one of the slightly more weaker tracks on the album for me. It's called Rockland, and this one is takes us into a slightly different place musically. You've got some interesting production quirks like on here, perhaps some of like the only hints that this is an 80s album. And lyrically, it is quite a political song, this one here, with some great lines the likes of Paul Heaton like or Billy Bragg like would be proud of. He sings like, "Our leaders are assassins' friends, and we aren't needed for their ends. No industry or open wars. They cut healthcare and lock the doors." And it's delivered in this kind of very tense kind of quite minimalistic, but yeah, quite kind of quite tense and quite so like angry kind of like delivery like on it. But I think it does sound a little bit out of place like on the album, both in terms of its production, but also that kind of like slightly kind of like angriness to it. It doesn't really fit in like with a lot of like the other material like on this album for me. Plus it's also quite a long song like as well. So yeah, for me, Rockland, yeah, would get a 7 out of 10. You gotta give more than you take. You gotta love. Next up is called You've Got to Love. Now, this is a brilliant track, this one here. It's possibly my favourite, like, on the album. It's just a really effortless song, this, for me. I mean, it is a bit cheesy and a bit corny, I suppose, but I like it, though. I don't have anything against it, to be frankly honest. Great kind of, like, instrumentation on it. You've got a lot of stuff going on here. You've got, like, an accordion part. You've got all these kind of fiddles going on, and just really... it's just a good time, this song, like, for me. A really kind of like easy, carefree feel to it, and lyrically it kind of matches it, kind of thing. It sings like you've got to give more than you take, you've got to love, and if you find love that's true, good for you. So it's very simple and direct, but very pleasing, and it's just an all-round a happy song, this. So yeah, You've Got to Love for me would get a 10 out of 10.
Love becomes a savage.
Next up now, which closes off side one, is called Love Becomes a Savage. Now, this is a more of a ballad, this one, a much more delicate song, but with some really good, lyrics on it. Again, quite, sort of like a track about kind of fearing growing up and sort of like, I guess, being scared about kind of like falling like in love. So it's a kind of slightly darker track. He sings like, and if you get married, you'll find out that it's true. Love becomes a savage who's going to savage you. And it kind of fits, yeah, for me, right on the album because of the kind of like instrumentation on it. There's a good atmosphere to like this song, which I think like really works. And again, highlights kind of Duffy's kind of fascination like with like the likes of like Nick Drake, like which is like which is how like the band like got like their name like lifted like from like one of like his songs. So yeah, Love Becomes a Savage, a great track there, and we'll get an we get an 8 out of 10. Opening up side 2 now, we get a more of an upbeat song which is called Together, and this one has a more kind of fulsome sound to it, and you've got some kind of, yeah, like great lyrics on it, quite Morrissey-esque, I suppose. He sings like, sometimes I'm with them walking down the street, but I could be wrong. That to me strikes me as quite a Morrissey-esque line, but the song itself is very upbeat, and then like by the time we get to like the chorus, I guess it is just kind of pure pop. He sings like, and together we can move a mountain, turn pain to pleasure if we can stick together. So again, quite basic lyrically, like I suppose, but I think it is just a good time, this song. And I think in terms like of instruments, they've kind of moved away a little bit from like the kind of folkiness of this one and really just embracing kind of like sort of like perfect kind of pop songcraft. So I really rate this one and would give it a 9 out of 10.
Too happy.
Next up is called The Road to Happiness. Now, this is possibly my least favourite on the album. It's a lot slower, this one, and it's a bit dreary, this song, for me personally. I think it's got a quite a undistinctive melody, like, on it, although you have got some lovely vocal harmonies, like, on it, and some kind of quite mysterious sounding, like, instrumentation. You've got, like, this kind of, like, harmonium. It kind of provides an interesting texture, like, to, like, the song. And I suppose it is a nice kind of counterbalance to like the last track, in the sense that this is bringing down the pace. It is a slower song, but I just think lyrically it's quite repetitive. It kind of it's kind of like one or two lines and then on the road to happiness. I think it was based on like a poem like of like Duffy's, but yeah, for me it is one of the slightly more ponderous tracks like on the album, but it's still not bad though, so I will give it a 6 out of 10.
I used to wonder where the birds flew away.
Next up is another favourite called Too Sooner Late Than Better. Now, this song really reminds me a lot of early Simon and Garfunkel. I could really imagine this song slotting right in to, say, like the Sounds of Silence album. It's a really breezy track with some great lyrics on it, just kind of carefree lyrics. I used to wonder where the birds flew away to, but now I spend my days thinking about you. It's just a really charming song and one I really, really enjoy. So that one would get a 10 out of 10. Next up is called And the Ship Sails On. Now, this is another winning track for me. Again, it's got quite a kind of carefree feel to it and a very much a kind of free-flowing kind of vibe to it, but I think that is also amplified by the kind of lack of a traditional song structure with this. There's not really like a chorus like on this one here, but again, fantastic lyrics basically concerning like the passing like of time. He sings like, and the ship sails on, and when our lives have gone, what epitaph will mean a thing? What are you gonna say when the phone don't ring? Was your life good? And were your bookshelves made out of wood to hold the books they write when their heroes die? So some great, fantastic lyrics on there. And musically, you've got some really interesting guitar textures on there, which complements Duffy's vocal really nicely. So for me, this one would get another 10 out of 10, another pretty perfect song there. And then the album closes with a song called Trumpets of Mount Parnasse. Now, this is an instrumental number to finish the album, and apparently, well, according to Wikipedia, this was used in a Flora margarine advert a few years back, but I certainly can't remember it, or don't recall hearing like this from there. I mean, it's a very simple number, this. It is an instrumental track. You've really just got kind of like a prominent banjo riff, which kind of punctuates like the song, and then this kind of galloping kind of clicky kind of beat to it, so it is quite minimalistic and very kind of bare bones. Everything's kind of stripped back and just like the bare minimum on this one here. But then I suppose it does kind of build a little bit. By the end, you've got a kind of chorus of singers coming in who kind of are just kind of echoing what the banjo's doing. I mean, it's a pleasing closer certainly, and a track I think would have had great potential if they'd maybe wrote some lyrics to it, because I think there is a foundation of a really good song here. So yeah, that closing track would get a 7 out of 10 from me. Okay, so overall, this album would score 86%. So I think this is a brilliant album here. I think it's one which manages to mix a kind of wistful kind of sadness and melancholic sort of feel with kind of bright and breezy kind of songs as well. There's an interesting mix of the two kind of tracks kind of Black Velvet, Love Becomes a Savage, Road to Happiness, which are quite sort of downbeat kind of thing, but then great kind of folk folk sort of toe tappers with things like Return to Yesterday, You've Got to Love, and Too Sooner Later Than Better, where you can just imagine you can really just picture all musicians just having fun recording these songs. And I think it's a real artistic triumph as well for Duffy, because kind of before this he was kind of in a position where he was being sort of forced to make these kind of slightly dull kind of 80s cheesy dance records, and I think just by kind of deciding to follow his own artistic instinct and kind of not doing what his record company demanded, he manages to find his voice, and he's become liberated here to kind of follow his own artistic instincts, which I guess he kind of did for the rest of his career. And the other point to make about this album is it sounds completely timeless, maybe aside from some of the synth bits on Rockland, but you could be forgiven for thinking this album came out either in the early 70s or even even as recent as last year. That's just shows kind of the timeless quality of not only the songs but the production and the whole feel of the album just has a real timeless feel to it. So yeah, that has been my review of the Lilac Time. So yes, I hope you have enjoyed this video. If you've got any suggestions for future reviews, please do leave them down below in the comments, and I will see you all next time for the next video. Goodbye.